Alright, so this is Supercollider, and this is the first synth that I had worked on, inspired by something that I had worked on programming for the synth. So, I'll just run it once for now. Every time it runs, it randomizes. You see all these rand RANDs, so that's randomizing between two different values. So every time you would run this, it gives you a bunch of different values. The synth is essentially the interface for it is the mouse. So there are a couple different places that do different things. Like you can get some like slower kind of modulations up here. You can get some pauses down the bottom. Up over here, you get quicker steppy stuff. Okay? So the cool thing with supercollider is, as you can see here, so this is the synth that's running right now. It's got the frequency scope and the oscilloscope. Um, but if we want to do another voice, we just put another one in there. Like I said, since all of these randomize every time that you run it, then it has a totally different range than the other one does. So, you could run it as many times as you want. I usually stop about 4 right now. I feel like it gives a pretty nice variety. So, this was just a little kind of silly thing that I'd been messing with. Let's see, I wrote out, there we go, drew this guy out, and this is the kind of, I'll just leave this running while we kind of go over this, but this is the kind of visualization for what is happening with the patch. I know there's a lot going on here, but it will make sense. At its very most basic, it's just a square wave oscillator going into a bandpass filter, and then that goes into a high pass filter, and that goes out. So a pretty simple path. And then the mouse X, all of the like mouse control for what the X and Y's do are over here. It's really, they each are controlling, I think that might be wrong, oops. They're each controlling a set of pulse oscillators, which are just being used to kind of trigger these steppers. So the stepper's size is set by the mouse, and the big step over here has some different maths involved with it to be able to set, like, the maximum is the modulo of mouse Y and mouse X, and then, like, the base value is one of those, like, randomized values and then gets multiplied by your mouse input. So there's a lot of math that's not really, like, discussed in this kind of visualization. So, like I said, we've got these two pulse oscillators running these steppers. The size change, the size of the steps, and the value, like min-max kind of stuff, changes depending on where your mouse is at. And then those each come out. So that's this whole section. So now it's just this bit over here. So we've got gift, or the little step. This one here is coming to all 3 of these. These are it's a single module in supercollider, but it seems like it's essentially just a low frequency modulator, like a kind of sample and hold noise sort of thing. So I'm using that into the amp and into the RQ inputs on the filters. Right. So, and oh yeah, and this amp here too. So we've got 2 different kind of like amp modulations going on, and then the Q of the filters are also being modulated by those. So that's all of this right here. So now we're down to like just this bit. We already said it's the oscillator into a filter, out, right? That's pretty easy. The oscillator's frequency is the big step minus the little step. The band passes frequency is mouse Y plus the little step minus the big step with a slew or lag in between. All right, so then the really the last thing here, where this pulse is coming out from the little step, so that comes out here and comes in over here, and then our band pass output is going to a pulse counter. So that's the source for it, and then the pulse from over here that's running the stepper comes in to reset once it reaches a certain size. Just depending on, again, what the mouse setup is. So the band pass comes in here, gets counted, and then so that just kind of counts up and up and up. That comes into a lag, so that it's kind of slewing those. Depending on how quickly or slowly it's moving, it'll change that value, and it comes in as the first frequency input, and that gets added to the little step. Yeah, that's pretty much how that whole thing runs. So it just kind of uses these step sizes as its first source of modulation, and then after it does that, does the counter and uses that as its final modulation output. So that's pretty fun. And of course, we can get really silly. Run a whole bunch of these at the same time. Let's go ahead and stop it and run just one again. This one's a little bit too slow. There we go. I like this one a little bit better. And that is kind of the nature of this synth too, is that it's it's kind of temperamental, and that since it has so many randomized features, you may pull something up and it's too quiet for what you want, or it's not in the right frequency range, so you just kind of have to keep playing. So that's all well and good.